it's Mayor Michelle Wu here. I'm so excited to welcome you all to the 13th Annual Community of Conscience Brunch. For 45 years, Casa Mirna has served as a beacon of hope to survivors of domestic violence by connecting people to shelter and services where they can find safety, stability, community. They've proven to be a vital part of our support system. That's what so many survivors need, a network that mobilizes to prevent domestic abuse, a network that offers intervention tactics to disrupt cycles of abuse, a network that advocates for resources and protections for survivors. Protections like economic stability and safe, affordable, permanent housing. These are two of the most urgent concerns for survivors as they work to leave abusers. Over a third of domestic violence survivors report becoming homeless after separating from abusive partners. I'm thankful for organizations like Casa Mirna, who have tripled the number of people they serve to more than 300. That's why I'm proud of the city's relationship with Casa Mirna. By working with multiple city departments, Casa Mirna has grown your housing assistance program, expanded rental assistance to over $2 million a year, and awarded permanent housing subsidies to over 50 survivor households in the last year alone. This is what's possible when we all come together, when we all work towards a common goal of addressing and preventing domestic violence. I hope Casa Mirna continues to grow and connect survivors with resources. I want to thank you and all the sponsors for supporting this life-saving work.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. What an exciting time to see you. You're a real dynamo, and we thank you for joining us. I'm Liz Walker, and I am delighted to be your Master of Ceremonies this morning for Casa Mirna's 13th Annual Community of Conscience virtual brunch. I think I've been doing these Community of Conscience events for almost 13 years, and it is good to be back with you again, especially after the incredible 2 years that we've all gone through. And the theme of today's event is From Surviving to Thriving, and that's a perfect theme. You know, I believe that we should be all trying to practice as much joy as possible, figuring out ways to celebrate in the midst of all of the uncertainty of the times. And that's exactly what we're doing now by turning the spotlight on people and on institutions that do good work like Casa Mirna. So we're glad you're here to celebrate with us. We have an incredible program for you today. We have a dynamic set of speakers and performers. This is going to be one Saturday morning, Mother's Day weekend, you're going to remember. At 11:50, we're going to give each of you the opportunity to kind of form community when we transition from the program into social networking tables and share some quality time together. So this is a special morning. Be glad that you're here. And now it's my honor to introduce to you my hero, the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Casa Mirna, Stephanie Brown. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. Thank you, Liz. I know I speak for all of us when I say how thrilled we are that you're serving as our MC again this year. That's always the first question I ask is, will Liz be there? So thrilled you're here. And good morning, everyone. So good to see you, I guess, at our second annual virtual event. We would not be here today without our host committee, without our board, and our development team who put this fantastic program together. Normally, I would have them stand and have you applause and we'd give them some love in person. And since we can't do that, I'm asking them to introduce themselves to you during the networking session at the end. So you can applause them then. I also want to thank all of our generous sponsors, including our gold sponsors, the Allen Family Foundation, Cambridge Trust, Goulston and Stores, Reebok, and the United Way. And while I'm at it, I also want to give a shout out to Team Casa Mirna, who ran the Boston Marathon for us just a few weeks ago and raised nearly $50,000. Anderson, Christian, Fred, Lisa, Frank, thank you. And please introduce yourself to folks too and, take a bow. At last year's brunch, I talked about how in the face of so much pandemic-related hardship, I still had reason to feel optimistic, and you proved me right. So thank you for that. I like being right. I talked about the exponential escalation of abuse and violence and survivors facing homelessness due to their inability to pay rent, unable to afford food and household supplies. And I talked about how much you, our community, stepped up to support survivors. And here we are a year later, and you have continued to support survivors on a level I've never before experienced. The theme, as Liz said, for this year's event is From Surviving to Thriving. We are more than our experiences. If I have learned anything over the past 2 years, it is that it is not enough to just survive. We all deserve to thrive. Two of our speakers today, Diana and Sherry, will talk about their path to empowering themselves and thriving, and the support they got along the way. None of us thrive on our own. We all need love, we need nourishment, support, and we need access to resources. So this year, I want to share with you the deep gratitude I feel for our government partners, for all the resources they have provided survivors and organizations like Casa Mirna across the city and throughout the Commonwealth, for their commitment to helping survivors thrive. The City of Boston, Department of Neighborhood Development, the City Council, and the Boston Resiliency Fund, they awarded us over $3 million in housing assistance during the pandemic. Their support has allowed us to provide nearly 300 families fleeing abuse with rental assistance, safe hotel rooms, and emergency supplies. Without those resources, like the mayor said, these families would be facing homelessness. Instead, they're able to transform their lives because they have stable housing. Many of our city partners are here today. I can't thank you enough, Sheila Dillon, head of the Department of Neighborhood Development and Boston's housing chief, for your commitment to helping survivors achieve housing stability so that they can thrive. And our city councilors here today, Tanya Anderson, Ricardo Arroyo, Frank Baker, Aaron Murphy, Ruth Z. Lujiun, Julia Mejia, Kendra Lara, and City Council Ed Flynn. City Council President Ed Flynn. In addition, we know we always have the support of our other city friends here with us today. Sheriff Steve Tompkins, our beloved Marie Turley, a champion for women her entire career. Jose Masso, the city's new Chief Health and Human Services. Alexandra Valdez of the Office for Women's Advancement, and Maria Cheevers of the Boston Police Department. Thank you all. Our legislature this year has also prioritized support for survivors. This year, the legislature appropriated the highest funding levels we have ever seen for sexual and domestic violence services. In addition, they're working to fix a temporary federal gap in funding for victim services across the state of $20 million a year for 3 years. Many of our legislative champions are also here today, including Representatives Robert Consalvo, Kevin Honan, Jay Livingstone, Dan Ryan, and John Santiago. And the Senate is represented by Ashley Power in Senator Mike Rush's office. And the administration, led by Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, who you'll hear from later, made sure that survivors knew where to turn to for support by spreading the word about SafeLink, Casa Mirna's statewide domestic violence hotline. They provided us with PPE, testing supplies, and emergency funds to increase pay for our staff and meet survivors' emergency needs. So I also want to recognize from the state, our state's child advocate, Maria Mercedes, for protecting the Commonwealth's children. Liam Lowney of the Mass Office for Victim Assistance for fighting every day to make sure we have the resources we need to support survivors. And Alvina Brevard from the Department of Housing and Community Development for always thinking of survivors when it comes to housing resources. So thank you to all of our government partners who stepped up for survivors. But government resources alone will not end domestic violence. None of us thrive without our community. Casa Mirna and the survivors we support need each of you to be part of our community working to end abuse. So I ask you to join us in this work. There's so many things that you can do to strengthen our community. I can go on and on, but I'll keep it short. Share your time and talents with us. We're always looking for volunteers to support survivors and to help us build our programs. Call your elected officials and thank them for funding services and housing for survivors and ask them to keep it up. Educate yourself and the people around you about healthy relationships. Learn the warning signs of domestic violence and where to go for help and how to speak out against abuse. Invite us into your community to bring awareness and training about domestic violence. And of course, this is a fundraiser, so you can always give. Last year, we had a record $155,000 that we raised, and now we are already at $175,000, and our goal is $220,000, so keep giving. Reach out to us at any time to learn more and to get involved. So thank you all again for not just joining us this morning, but for standing with us, for doing your part to create a world in which all relationships are safe and healthy and survivors of domestic violence can thrive. You feed my optimism and you give me hope. And happy Mother's Day to everyone. And thank you. So back to Liz.
Stephanie, thank you. What words of comfort and words of hope that you shared with us. You know, she's given us some very specific things that we can do. But the other part of Stephanie's message this morning is it takes a village. It takes all of us. And indeed, Casa Mirna has an incredible village. But we're going to move on and tell you about some other people who are taking lead roles in this village to support victims of domestic violence. I want to introduce to you now our first speaker, our U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. I know firsthand that Senator Warren is just an incredible warrior woman. Whether she's on camera or off camera, she is always fighting for us. She is one of the nation's leading progressive voices, fighting for big structural change that would transform our economy and rebuild the middle class. Join me in welcoming one of my sheroes in the world, one of my friends, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Hello, Casa Mirna, and thank you for inviting me to speak to you today, and thank you for all that you do to support survivors of domestic violence. I wish that we could be together in person, but I am really glad to have a chance to share this message by video. I want to start by giving a really big shout out and thank you to the entire Casa Mirna team. Through your important work, you give voice to survivors all across our Commonwealth. Domestic violence is a serious problem in our communities, and it takes courage to discuss domestic violence. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 4 women has been a victim of physical violence by an intimate partner during her lifetime. Women of color are disproportionately impacted by domestic violence and are less likely to report it. These numbers mean that something is very, very wrong. Women should be able to live without fear in their homes. Now, there are many steps that we need to take to stop domestic violence and sexual assault and to support survivors. This will require us all to work together. Government, colleges, universities, researchers, and organizations in the community. And it's why we need the Violence Against Women Act. This act plays a vital role in combating domestic violence and sexual assault, and I was glad to finally see it reauthorized this year. I'm going to continue using my position in the Senate to help end domestic violence and sexual assault and to support survivors. And that's why we need to also continue supporting organizations like Casa Mirna to advance the discussion and to help us craft real solutions that are rooted in lived experiences. The Casa Mirna team needs to understands the needs of women and children as they work to build a new life. And that means providing high-quality housing assistance, jobs training, and legal resources. The services you provided during the pandemic were especially critical, and they still are critical for people experiencing sexual and domestic violence. I am so deeply grateful for the role this organization plays in the fight for a better world for women. So, thank you for being in this fight, and thank you to everyone who is here today. We're going to keep standing shoulder to shoulder in the years ahead, and we're going to keep moving forward, protecting women around our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Senator Warren, I love standing shoulder to shoulder with you. Thank you for joining us this morning. And now on to another hero, Senator Ed Markey, a consumer champion, a national leader on energy, environmental protection, and telecommunications policy. Of course, has a prolific legislative record on major issues across the policy spectrum, and of course has a commitment to improving the lives of women and children and families. Senator Markey, another good man. I'm honored to present to you this morning, Senator Ed Markey.
Good morning, Casa Myrna. This is Senator Ed Markey. And while I regret being unable to attend this breakfast celebration with you in person, I am so thrilled to have been invited to join you virtually. And I want to thank Senator Elizabeth Warren, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and Mayor Michelle Wu for their continued support of Casa Myrna, its mission, and the strong group of people the organization serves. The staff and volunteers at Casa Myrna deserve our praise for their dedication, their hard work, and their commitment to survivors. Through Casa Myrna, survivors of domestic violence receive comprehensive care, build sustainable self-sufficiency, and overcome the trauma of abuse. From providing emergency housing, maintaining crisis call lines, and fulfilling requests for legal advocacy, counseling, and crisis intervention, Casa Myrna's support reaches thousands of survivors, and very importantly, their children. I'm proud of the work Casa Myrna has accomplished throughout the pandemic and what they continue to do for the people of Boston. Casa Myrna sets a national standard of excellence, and their work does not go unnoticed. We need Casa Myrna to continue this critical work, but Casa Myrna cannot do it alone. We need to do this together with solidarity, compassion, and love, and join as one in support of survivors. As a congressman in the House of Representatives, I supported the initial enactment of the Violence Against Women's Act in 1994 and voted in favor of every subsequent authorization. The Violence Against Women Act has improved the criminal justice system's response to the pervasive problems of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. It ensures that victims and their families have access to the services they need to secure their safety and rebuild their lives. And it supports training to improve criminal justice and community-based responses to domestic violence and sexual assault. In March of 2022, Congress passed the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which included provisions to reauthorize all existing Violence Against Women Act programs until 2027. It also increased services and support for survivors from marginalized communities, including the LGBTQ community, and expanded tribal courts' criminal jurisdiction to cover non-native perpetrators of assault and abuse on tribal lands. I was proud to vote in favor of this important legislation. We have to continue existing Violence Against Women Act programs and strengthen the law to better protect survivors, hold perpetrators accountable, and prevent domestic violence and sexual assault. Thank you again for all you do. You uphold everything that Massachusetts stands for with grace and virtuosity. I am forever grateful to support your work and continued growth. Congratulations on all of your work. You are truly doing God's work here on earth.
Thank you, Senator Markey. I love that virtuosity, beautiful language for a good man who's doing good work. You know, the senator mentioned that he started legislation back in 1994, and I was thinking about this is a long journey that we've all been on to make change in the world. It's not a sprint; it's certainly a marathon. I remember as a reporter being in situations where you couldn't even report on domestic violence in my lifetime. So it takes time for things to change. When you get down or feel that it's not moving fast enough, just remember it's a continuum and things always will work out, I believe, for the best. And one of the people who's given me that kind of hope is our next guest this morning. It's an honor to introduce to you Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna is an activist, a legislator, a survivor. She's the first woman of color to be elected to Congress from the Commonwealth. She is my friend. Ayanna says those who are closest to the pain must be closest to the power. And she has proven that all the time in working as a change broker, not just for the Commonwealth, but for humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman.
Good morning, family. It feels good to be in virtual community with you, but I look forward to when we can all be together in beloved community, breaking bread and embracing one another, fortifying ourselves for the work that remains to be done. To my Casa Mirna family and the work of Survivors Justice, I thank you. I thank you for all that you do to create a safe space for healing and to advocate for survivors. Casa Mirna, you have been an incredible leader and partner, truly a national model in our fight to end domestic violence. I'm so grateful to join you and to be surrounded by the strength of survivors here with us today, and to so many others who entered through the doors of Casa Mirna seeking refuge, protection, and a sense of normalcy and safety. None of us is free until all of us are free from the threat of violence in all of its forms. And since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that the number of cases of intimate partner violence has unfortunately only increased. The past few years have been an incredibly difficult time for all our families, all our communities, but for survivors, it has been unprecedented. Casa Mirna's work has never been more essential than right now. The personal sacrifices that you have made, the laboring in love, the advocacy, the resources, the safe space that you create is nothing short of a miracle for many who live under the constant threat of violence. Despite extremely difficult circumstances, you, Casa Mirna, you have always shown up and found creative ways to support and care for some of the most vulnerable members of our community. And we thank you. We thank you for recognizing that we are one human family, that our destinies are tied, and it is our commitment to serving one another and standing with each other and up for one another that makes us strong. As your Congresswoman, as your sister in solidarity, know that you can always count on me to uplift your stories, to legislate in close partnership with you, and in direct response to the hurt. And of course, you know that that hurt is not abstract from me. As a child, I watched my mother be abused at the hands of many who claimed to care for her, who were supposed to take care of her. Instead, as a child, I witnessed my mother experience great abuse, degradation, and that is an image of feeling which never leaves you when you see such brutality, such harm happening to the person that is your world, your everything. Of course, I'm not alone. And to the millions of sons and daughters who've witnessed similar abuse and violence, just know that I see you. And as I've always said, the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policymaking. And that's why I will always center survivors in the work that I do. Casa Mirna, I thank you for the work you do every day to protect and serve survivors of domestic violence. And I look forward to our continued partnership to see budgets and policies passed in Congress that center the dignity and the humanity of survivors everywhere. I'll see you soon.
Ayanna, you are power personified, and we thank you for being with us today. Our next presenter is the Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, Karen Polito. Since taking office with Governor Charlie Baker, one of my favorite people, Lieutenant Governor Polito has visited and partnered with leadership in all 351 of the Commonwealth cities and towns, signing community compact agreements with every municipality on more than 800 smarter ways to deliver services. She has been out there meeting us and working for us. Ladies and gentlemen, our Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Polito, friend to all of you, and it gives me great pleasure, although virtually, I wish we were in person, to say thank you to Casa Mirna and your entire team. Thank you, Liz Walker, for serving as the MC. You do such a phenomenal job. You're such an inspiration to all of us. This is a great event, and I remember being with you last in person and feeling the energy and the commitment that you have to making our Commonwealth safer and better for victims of domestic violence, assault, survivors, and doing what's necessary as providers of services, working in conjunction with community as well as our state government to have the resources to do your jobs even better every day. It has been an honor for me to serve as the chair of the Governor's Council to address sexual assault and domestic violence. We've done a lot of great work together to make sure that we're addressing intervention issues, prevention, and making sure that we have the coordination within the regions across our Commonwealth, and also to make sure that we are doing everything we can to strengthen that safety net all across our Commonwealth. I want to highlight a couple of things as we have time together. The one is the Respectfully campaign. As the mother of 2 teenagers, I recognize the need to help them with strategies and information to be able to navigate relationships and friendships, and how to identify when something is not healthy, either with your own situation or a friend, and what to do. This was very important for us to spend time on over the last few years to reinforce these values and these skills to help prepare young people for the next chapters in their lives, whether it's work or going on to a college campus. You've all been so helpful in the Respectfully campaign. I want to thank my colleagues in the legislature as well for continuing to fund this ongoing social media campaign, one that hasn't been done in over 20 years in our Commonwealth. These are just examples of so much work that has to be done, whether it's human trafficking or housing stability, economic stability, safety planning, helping people feel comfortable in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that if they do move forward, there will be supports. If they do contact their local police department, there are people there that know how to handle their call and give them a warm handoff to the support that they need. And finally, there's so much that we can talk about, but we will be sort of finishing this year, putting out our plan, and then leaning on all of you to continue this work through the council and with partners like you at Casa Myrna to make sure that we don't lose track of the importance of this work. Finally, COVID had a significant impact on all of us. Casa Myrna and SafeLink, you were a lifesaver for many individuals who, when we're hearing the governor's messages about you're safer at home because of COVID, weren't necessarily safer at home because of violence and trauma in their lives at home. So SafeLink provided them with a place that they could go, a call, a hotline to receive information and support during some of their most difficult moments and hours. So SafeLink has a lifeline, of course, but you've answered over 25,000 calls, 88% of which were from survivors seeking shelter. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad you've come together to support the work of Casa Myrna, to provide them with the resources that they need, to staff and everyone else there. Thank you, and really appreciate your including me in your event today. All the best to you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. As you can see, we've got heavyweights on this show this morning. I'll tell you a secret. We had to turn people away. Queen Elizabeth, sorry, Joe Biden can't get on. No time for you. This is the place people wanted to be. Beyonce next time. We'll worry about the Kardashians down the road. It's an important place to be. And that's why all of these leaders wanted to be with you this morning. But one of our most important guests I get to introduce right now, Beat the Odds, dedicated to serving under-resourced youth in Boston's low-income communities, Creative Youth Development Program, presents this group from our community called Beat the Odds. They have a huge connection to Casa Myrna, being founded by our very own Camilla Pagan, whom you saw earlier in the Boston Celtics commemoration and honoring. But we get to see them right now, so they can just show us joy and show us talent. Ladies and gentlemen, Beat the Odds.
Unfortunately, domestic violence affects so many families in our community. We see how it impacts our youth, and at Beat the Odds, we talk about the importance of healthy relationships. Casa Myrna and BTO are working closely together to create awareness among the youth in our community. We encourage our participants to express themselves through music, and so they created a music video based on their experiences with toxic relationships. We are part of the solution. Let's work together to put an end to domestic violence.
Hello?
Yo, what's good with you right now?
What's good with
Real
me?
though. Honestly,
Honestly, what?
I'm not trying to hear any of that.
Okay,
I'm
you're
in
never
the
trying to
studio,
hear any of that. You got time
I'm
for
trying to
everything
relax.
else.
It's just,
Okay, relax. It's smooth.
I get all of that.
Okay, you
Honestly,
got
you're just
it.
acting like
You got it.
Look, so who you calling a bitch? You ain't never had a queen before? Real love, type of stuff you never seen before? I be trying to keep your mind right. You know, for us to make it work, it's gonna take time, right? Well,
Nah,
hindsight.
wait 1 minute. You say you keeping my head straight. Well, how was you holding me down while holding on dead weight? You're making me tight, talking about how to make it alright. Why you letting rumors consume you before I arrive? You tripping over little things, trying to belittle my life. What type of queen is that? I can't even tell you the truth, cause I fear it's gonna be used against me. Like it's you against me.
Look,
You know what?
you think you
Forget
would
it.
have respect for me, the same respect I have for you. You're nothing like you were before, so now I'm thinking who was who. Got a little clout, now you telling me I'm using you. The feeling of me keeping you around is worse than losing you. You playing with my words now. You know words cut deep. Every time you throw a jab, you sit back and watch me bleed. I won't do you how you do me. If I could take it back, you would've never even knew me. So love me or you lose me, word. I won't hesitate to leave for my peace. Tryna play me like a dummy, guess the joke is on me. This the last time I gave you everything I had. You a demon from my past, good girl gone bad.
You know I've been trying to love since before I loved you. I'm talking with no ground to stand on and still ain't put no one above you. No, I ain't perfect. I made mistakes and felt the urges, but the last time I got on my knees was Sunday worship. I ain't begging nobody to stay, and I ain't changing for you, baby. I'm already caught up in my ways. Lot of fish up in the sea, could probably catch them in a day. But I'm right here arguing with you. Now tell me what that say.
Man, please.
You were the Jesse to my James, went from child man into a little child's eye flame. Try to fly you to the moon, but we went the wrong way. Now we too close to the sun and my wings melting away. Damn.
I know he did not just bang on me.
Beat the odds. That's a powerful message, powerful story. We thank you for your talent and sharing that with us today. You know, to really understand what we're talking about, you have to be closest to the pain, the people who go through this, who are the most courageous people in our community. And so now I'd like to introduce to you a survivor, a woman who has really moved from surviving to thriving, who knows domestic violence from the beginning and knows how to get out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you one of our special guests today, Sherry, one of the survivors.
Greetings and welcome to the annual Casa Myrna Brunch. I'm very honored to be able to speak as a participant of Casa Myrna. The numerous services that Casa Myrna provided me allowed me to escape an abusive and dangerous marriage. Often it takes a partner who is being abused an average of 7 times to permanently leave an abusive relationship. And there were certainly numerous incidences and reasons for me to leave the married home. I did not leave through the difficult days when my husband would destroy my property, throw away my belongings, sell my valuable items, and slap me in the face, choke me, and verbally belittle me with condescending insults and remarks. Some reasons I did not leave immediately included financial dependency, housing stability, fear of his anger, being isolated, marriage, love, commitment, and the endless hope that he would just stop hurting me. December 28th, 2020 was the day I left and never returned to the marriage. I sustained physical injuries from my spouse, the very spouse who took a vow to love and protect me. Yet, I actually needed protection from my own husband. As a middle-aged woman, I thought I learned to read the warning signs and red flags, but my husband misrepresented himself. I believed his charm. I did not think that I would fall victim to an abusive partner again in my life, much less my own spouse. Unfortunately, as a child, I did witness domestic violence with my mother and her boyfriend. I was also a victim of child abuse and neglect. In addition, 22 years ago, I had to flee from a very difficult and abusive partner when I was pregnant with our baby. Unfortunately, couples counseling did not help with my spouse. His numerous rehabs did not help. His 90 days in jail did not help. The restraining order and no abuse order did not help. What more violence and hurt did I need to endure? What more evidence did I need to believe that my spouse was abusive and he threatened to kill me and he had a plan to do so? I had to stop it. And thankfully, I had the services from Casa Marna to assist me in fleeing from this unsafe situation. I'm so very thankful and grateful to the numerous staff who helped me during this extremely traumatic and difficult situation. Starting in October of 2020 until now, I've worked with folks from 5 of the teams at Casa Marna: legal, housing, counseling, residential, and community. My first point of contact was with Elizabeth Fernandez from community. She did an intake and asked me if I was safe and needed a bed. And I replied, not yet, because he's incarcerated currently, but maybe when he's released in December. Fast forward to Christmas Eve, 2020, when my spouse's therapist, Kate, called me and said, "Sherry, your husband threatened to kill you. We have to come up with a safety plan." That weekend, my spouse shared his plan with me to kill me. He was going to cut me up, throw me in the back of a trunk, drive me to Maine, bury me in the backyard, and no one would ever know. 4 days later, he slapped my face, injuring my eye, and shoved me to the floor. I was in shock. I knew I was in danger. I pleaded with him and asked him if I could finish coloring my hair, and he allowed me. Imagine asking your spouse for permission to finish coloring your hair, especially at my age. I quickly and quietly finished, got dressed, slipped out the back door and into my car while calling his therapist, Kate, to inform her that I was on my way to the hospital to seek medical attention. I then went to the courthouse and quickly got a full restraining order back. Then I called Elizabeth from Casa Marna, my community service advocate. I shared what happened. She said, "You need a bed, huh?" I said, "Yes." And she connected me with Karen, an advocate at the emergency shelter. Within 4 hours, I had a bed, and I arrived at Casa Marna with a few of my belongings. Karen went to the closet and brought me some clothes, bathroom toiletries, a towel, gift cards to CVS, dollar buck tables, and essentials. I finally felt safe and at peace with a quiet room that provided me an opportunity to reflect back on what I had left and hope for the new life that I would make without being abused and hurt. I also met the legal team by managing attorney Catherine Schultz. Over Zoom, we discussed my restraining order and filing for divorce. I'm very grateful for the legal team that supported me during my legal proceedings. In addition, I'm grateful for the Casa Marna Rapid Rehousing Program. I met with the housing team manager, Jessica Santana, who helped me apply for a new apartment and have been living in it since I left Casa Marna. And finally, the counseling team and program manager, Joanne Schindler. I continue to receive help from the clinical interns, including Sammy. Providing support during this traumatic experience has offered me a way to manage my emotional well-being. As I wrap up, a few thoughts about what I learned is make sure to tell someone. It's so important, rather than keeping it hidden. It doesn't get better. And if you suspect that someone is being abused, call the safe link. Thank you to the donors, your generosity for helping survivors like me flee. And thank you to the numerous supportive services from Casa Marna and the staff. I'm very, very thankful and grateful for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. What a powerful story, a disturbing story, a frightening story, but a story that went from the unspeakable to great hope. And you know what Sherry said? She said, then I called Casa Myrna because Casa Myrna is always there. And now I'd like you to meet another survivor who has another incredible story that I know will touch your heart. Please join me in welcoming Diana. Diana?
Hello, my name is Diana Paula, and I had the pleasure of living in Casamina when I was a small child 30 years ago. My sister and I lived in Salem with our mom, who had an abusive boyfriend. We ended up having to leave our apartment to live in a temporary shelter, also in Salem, due to the threat on our lives from her boyfriend. That shelter could only take us for 3 months, and then we were transferred to Casamina. I felt very safe at Casamina, and I had a lot of fun with the other kids who lived there with me. The staff there made me feel appreciated, and they respected us. I admired the staff that I interacted with. I spent a lot of my childhood in terrible and chaotic environments. This was one of a few places where I had a sense of security and warmth. I experienced every childhood event except for a parent who committed suicide. And despite the odds being against me, I was able to go to college and get a master's degree as well. Casamina was part of the long line of people and places who made me feel like I could be someone when I grew up. I now work as a lab manager in a psychology research lab at a university in Florida. A lot of my success is owed to those who believed in me through my childhood journey, especially the staff at the shelter. The experiences I had while at Casamina stayed with me my whole life. Last year, when I was thinking about places to make a meaningful donation to, places that I trusted, originally I was drawing a blank. Then I remembered the shelter from my childhood, and my time there came flooding back. For some reason, probably the caring staff and lasting memories, the name Casamina stuck with me these last 30 years. I went on the Casamina website to see if they were still in existence, and I was shocked that the shelter was still there. I was overjoyed because I knew that the work they do makes a difference, as I lived and benefited from my time at the shelter. I sent a donation to Casamina and added a message about keeping up the good work, because you never know who you might touch in a profound way. They might grow up and start donating like I did. I think Casamina is special, and that is the main thing that stayed with me since I left the shelter back in 1992. I was only there a little less than a year, yet it left lasting feelings of safety and fun. I hope every child that goes through there gets to experience all the positive emotions I had. Thank you for joining us today. I ask that you consider making a donation to Casamina as an investment in making a difference in a child's life the way Casamina did with mine.
Thank you for telling us your story, Diana. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you all for sharing stories. The point of this whole thing is to remind you that there is a way through this madness. There is a way through chaos. You know, one of the lessons of being through in this pandemic over the last 2 years, I believe, is that we all know a little bit about trauma. We do trauma work at my church, and we're very engaged in people who are facing unspeakable situations like some that you've heard today. But there is a way through, and you're a part of that. So you're on this call on a beautiful, I hope it's beautiful wherever you are, Saturday on Mother's Day weekend, because you care about humanity. You care about your community. So we want you to know that we have already set a record in fundraising for Casa Myrna. Right now, we have raised $180,000. We have so many friends. As you see, people are lining up to get on this wonderful virtual conscience brunch. But we need to go more. We need to do more. We need to raise more funds. It's very easy for me to ask you to give more money, your money, whatever it is, because I know that Casa Myrna works. The program that we do, we have situations that come up in the middle of the night, out of nowhere. And we know that we can call Casa Myrna and people there will either help us immediately or give us a referral to a resource. So this is a community institution that has never failed this community. Won't you give right now? We're trying to raise enough money. If you give $75, you can buy healthy foods for a food insecure survivor and her family. If you give $200, you can help defray the moving costs for a survivor who is transitioning into a permanent affordable home. If you give $1,000, you can provide emergency rental assistance to cover arrears due to job loss. You will be riveted right to the front line by the donation you give right now. You will become a warrior for change. You will be helping someone get out of trouble in this very moment. We are trying to raise $220,000 in honor of the year 2022. Please make a donation now. If every guest who's on this virtual call will give us $100, we'll reach that goal, $220,000. And this year we're doing something even more different and more exciting. We have a silent auction. I know a lot of you have already bid on items. And as a reminder, the auction closes at 1 p.m. today. The link is being posted in the chat, and you can see it at the top of the event page. So you can check it out right now. Every dollar you give makes a difference. We are so glad you've joined us this afternoon. We're glad you're with us right now. We're glad you're a part of this. We're still in mourning. I'm sorry, I'm in Maine. Things look different up here. But wherever you are, you're a part of something so special. While you are making your contributions and checking out the auction, I want to tell you what comes next. We're all going to move into the networking portion of the event. That's what makes this very special. You can not only listen to people who are power brokers and change makers and people who have gone through hell and gotten out, but you too can start a conversation and be a part of the conversation. It's super easy to get connected right after we finish here. There are 3 steps on this very virtual line. First, you click on the orange Join Networking link. I'll say that again. First, click on the orange Join Networking link, verify your name, then click Ready. You will see all the tables that you can join. Locate the table you want to join, click the orange check mark to join in. The tables are in alphabetical order. So you see, we've learned to pivot from this insane time we've been in, and now you can be a part of a table and have your own networking community. Casa Myrna staff will be at various tables just to say hello. If you have specific questions about our legal, our community-based and housing services, or our Safe Link hotline, you can find our staff experts at Amy, Camilla, Claire, and Jessica at own tables to greet you. Address your questions and share our stories. We want you to hear from Cecia, Gelfie, and Sam, who will be mingling from table to table. So you see, everything is possible when we put our minds to it. And we can end domestic violence. We can provide safe spaces for people, and we can provide communities for people to heal and grow. It was really wonderful being with you today. We want to thank all our sponsors. We thank all our political leaders. We thank all of those who wanted to be a part of this, because this is something special. So most importantly, we thank you. Join the conversation, stay connected, be at a table. God bless you. And we can change the world right here, right now. Thank you. Have a good day.